And we're live. Hello and welcome everyone to another 40k Frontiers showcase. With us today, we've got the beautiful duo from South Australia. We've got Josh and Engelke and Adam Napier. How you guys doing? Oh, look at Josh showing off.
I was just being beautiful. Yeah, I'm good, thanks, man. How are you guys?
Tickety boo. How about yourself, Adam?
Yeah, good. I just realised I should be on camera. I'm here repairing terrain, but I'll get up to my desk in just a second because I'm in the middle of gluing something. So
it's okay. The life of a TO, right? Having someone who has much terrain. Always.
Dude, Adam, it's fine. I'm with you. I'm painting bases right now because that's what I feel like.
Yeah,
maybe I could build this, I guess.
No, we don't need anything more. We've painted everything. Let's stick with that.
Dude, now I think I'm committed. I'm going to go make some more terrain after the recording as well. Sounds fun.
Oh, easy. So these two beautiful gentlemen, they're from South Australia, so part of the TO community who are helping running Uprising Adelaide. Sorry, there we go. Uprising Adelaide, and they've helped run a bunch of events in South Australia and all that jazz. So we're going to talk to them about what it's all like and some of the top tips heading into Uprising. So, but before we get into the weeds of things, start off with yourself, Josh. So how did you get into 40k and sort of how long have you been playing for?
So I got into it, I think like a lot of people do. I got in as like a 12-year-old or 13-year-old, something like that. I was in primary school. I don't remember exactly what happened. Walked past, bought some Tyranids. I remember Tau came out. I was playing with like a friend, and then that friend ended up moving to Queensland, and I stopped playing. And then, 15 years later, I gave away my armies, and then about 3 years later, I decided to start playing again.
Classic, dude. It's fine. You're in Australia. It's cheap to click 40k, right?
Shade from the Kiwis, the only people who can claim it's worse.
Look, I'm suffering with you guys. That was what I meant by that. But also, yeah, there's that.
And those joining us on screen, the typical Australian bloke in a bin tank singlet, of course. We've got Adam Napier. So how long were you playing 40k? And like when did you get into it, or how did you get into it?
I got into 40k, what was it, 2001? Third edition had just come out. A mate of mine had what's the board game called? Blood Quest Hulk, Space Hulk.
Space Hulk.
Yeah. And
where did the blood come into it?
there's a Blood Quest or something as well. So
Blood Bowl?
something like that. No, there's a Blood Quest.
Okay.
There's a Blood Quest in there somewhere.
Yeah, I believe you did.
In the old days.
Don't argue with the TO.
So TO, what TO says goes, right? I started playing that, and then I played on and off till about 18, and then like many people dropped out around that age for a fair few years. Dabbled here and there, collected a couple of things, painted a couple of things while I was off trotting around Australia, working on islands and things like that. And then I moved back to Adelaide with a pregnant girlfriend in 2010, and then got pretty heavily into the competitive scene and haven't really stopped since then. So going on 13 years in the competitive scene, traveling, playing, losing a lot. Yeah.
But also winning a lot, Adam. You can give yourself a bit of credit. You've won a couple of events in your time and been pretty dominant in the Australian scene.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's nice to be a big fish in a small pond, so it certainly helps. So
that's it.
Dude, for guys who run terrain advantage, right? Everywhere you play.
Oh, dude, this is actually like legitimately a thing. Josh and I talk about it all the time. Whenever we travel somewhere, like we went across to RatCon this year, and RatCon runs our terrain. And we all did really, really well. Like Josh and I won, Josh finished like 4th or something like that. And then I'll travel to like WA for WATC, or we both went to WATC. And because we're just not used to the terrain layouts and the terrain setup, and it's just not the way we are used to things and the density that we expect, we just get trounced half the time. Like we don't do nearly as well as we would on like our own terrain. It's legitimately a thing. And because we've constantly got the ability to swap out our terrain and play with different layouts and things like that. It is actually a massive advantage.
Dude, it's a hell of a thing, right? Like making your own stuff, and then you're like, oh, it's somewhere else. It's different. It's not how I like it, how I made it. No, I don't want this.
This is definitely a thing. And every time I put together an army, I always go out to the room and I'm like, okay, do these models fit under the levels on the terrain? Do they fit behind this wall?
I was about to be the one breaking the swear word embargo, but like, screw your like the big L's with the massive floors. It's like
I got them. protect.
I got
so much
tall things,
protection.
dude. I want to hit you with knights and stuff.
Yeah,
This
so
is
much
why-
protection. You can stand 40 mils in the middle, and they just can't get you. It's great.
This is why I send like pictures to the TO page with like sad faces of big base things that are like trying to get inside of U's and stuff. I did appreciate that like directly the image I sent got put on the Facebook page. That was funny to me.
Yeah, that was Josh.
Why remake? Greatness.
Yeah.
Too good. So you sort of alluded to there, Adam. So you've basically set up and created your own set of terrain. So you did like Adelaide Uprising terrain per se, or the Adam Napier special terrain. So I guess like what's that process like? So what made you get started into creating your own terrain? I'm sure I know obviously 9th edition has been a massive talk about terrain with a player place terrain, UKTC, WTC, just nothing. Like what made you get into the terrain gig?
So we experienced a significant downturn, probably like a lot of areas during 6th and 7th in 40K. We had gone from a pretty thriving community in 5th and like early 6th, where we would have an 80-player GT and a couple of like big 30-player RTTs and things like that throughout the year, to a point where we literally in South Australia were playing in a guy's garage running 12-man events and struggling to get more than like 12 to 14 people. So I made the decision coming into 8th that I was going to put a lot of the weight on my own shoulders as far as getting the events to a standard. I'd traveled all over the country and played. I'd been to LVO, I'd seen what they do, and I had made the decision that I was going to put the weight on my shoulders to make sure that we had a good tournament scene and things like mats and terrain and stuff like that. So I started small. I bought like a little desktop laser cutter. I cut some cardboard because that was all we really had available, and that was all the thing was capable of cutting. We made some cardboard terrain, and we kept running little RTTs. At one point, we're running 6 to 8 RTTs in the year, just to try and build up funds. We're buying mats, we're getting more and more terrain. And then I finally got to a point where I said, okay, this cardboard terrain is not good enough. Josh is one of the worst proponents of it. He can knock a piece of MDF terrain, let alone a piece of cardboard. So I made the jump and I bought myself a rather expensive piece of equipment in a laser cutter, and had a really steep learning curve on the big machine. Ended up having to reinvest about twice as much in parts and stuff when I blew it all up, and just went from there. And then once COVID hit, we decided that we wanted to start running a big event, and so we just started really pushing it out. So it managed to do us really well, and now I've got a couple of the machines running because I can't even keep up with what we need to do. We've produced over, what was it? Probably in the realms, if you count all the containers, it's probably around 2,500 pieces of terrain for Uprising this year. That's just half of what we've got because we've already got all of the other stuff. So
just a little bit, 2,500 pieces. Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, that's counting containers, so it's a little bit cheating, but it's a lot. Yeah, it's a fair amount. So.
Dude, containers count. I don't know what you're talking about.
I got to the point where we were about halfway through our containers, and I decided that 6 pieces was too many pieces for one 2.5 by 5 inch piece of terrain. So I actually made the container shapes. So the WTC shapes, they're just like a block of MDF. They're like 6 pieces, and it's the whole shape. So rather than having individual containers that you can stack on top of each other and have to paint 6 sides of, it's like 6 sides in total for what would equivalently be 12 containers. So it's much better.
Dude, you should try priming the MDF before you cut it out. I can recommend it. It's a good move.
Yeah.
That's how I do all my stuff. So like I spray paint the crate sheets and then cut them out and they go together. Done. And like ruins, I've got it so the bottoms of them are around the edge, and then you can like spray the edge so that you've got like a nice fade going on, and then cut the ruins out. All painted, easy peasy.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, we've got a pretty good painting system overall. We got it down last year to about, including build time, about 18 minutes per piece, if you worked it out. So it wasn't too bad. So
that's pretty good. And you probably got helpers, right?
I mean, yes and no. Like a bulk of the work falls on us as the 3 main, but every year we've kind of had one person who's kind of chipped in. Last year it was something different. This year it's been one of the guys here, Brad McDonald, and then last year it was Josh Pope, and the year before that we had like a bit of a swathe of helpers. But we have found a lot of the time that you have to be particular in the helpers that you get. Otherwise, you end up with terrain that isn't quite square or the painting is quite poor. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Simon's a valuable member of the team, but he's not a member of the team that we let paint any terrain.
Yeah. Yes, this is very true.
Or you get the Benway special where you glue your ruins to the floor of your garage, and then you're like, oh, well,
Oh, I have done that numerous times. Like, I've even superglued my eyes shut twice. So, you know.
Dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
In his defense, he thought it was... Oh, I'm not meant to swear, never mind.
Thought it was eye drops, or...
No, it was just some unfortunate spillages and like something dropping on a tube of super glue and it squirting directly towards my eye. So both times it was my left eye as well. So
well
done to yourself. I'm sure the partner was very impressed with you and your skills.
Yeah. It's a badge of honor that I wear well. Whenever I have got to introduce yourself and tell a funny story, I'm like, yeah, I've super glued my eye shut. Not once, but twice, whilst being an adult. And they're like, what?
Have you seen those t-shirts? Got like a monkey covered in bandages with like running with scissors, and it's got like slow learner over it.
Yeah. That would be me. The first time it was really bad. They took me to the hospital and they had to like flush my eye with saline water, and having salines, like cold saline squirting into your eye for 15 minutes straight. By the end of it, it's like someone is driving a nail into your eyeball. It's pretty full on.
Do not recommend, I'm guessing. Do not recommend.
No, don't.
Not a fun experience. So how would you describe your terrain? So obviously we had some photos showing on the screen before. It's sort of like a blend, I guess I'd argue, of like WTC and what sort of UKTC does in terms of like big L-shaped ruins, sometimes with a big base, and then those like typical containers and stuff like that. So what made you, like, how would you describe your terrain to people who've never played on it or are seeing it for the first time?
Josh, you can field that one.
I guess sorry. Last podcast we did, my son, I've got a 6-month-old, he sounded like a cat dying in the background. So I'm utilizing the mute button.
Yeah.
All good. So how would you describe the terrain, Josh?
So I describe it as fairly dense. We have fairly dense terrain. So we try to have it relatively balanced. We have a mixture, like in the first year, we had lots of larger pieces, and we're trying to scale it back to lots of smaller pieces just so that it offers, rather than like one sort of really staging point, you have sort of multiple ways to break up shooting lanes and engage in different ways. So it's also quite varied. We utilize a lot of terrain pieces from the book that people don't use, things like ruined walls, which offer dense cover. We were using barricades the last 2 years, but we decided not to use them this year because they just found them all on the floor, people just taking them off of the tables, even though it's their only source of heavy cover in the game. So I guess fairly dense, fairly balanced.
Just liberally put heavy cover on every and all like massive piece of terrain. The front line.
No, we're not adding any keywords to anything. We're playing like the straight out of the book. And I guess one of the things that is different with Ninth is all the keywords and especially the interaction between sort of being obscured or getting cover. And so we have some ruins with bases underneath the level. And so that large footprint, offers cover for things like Terminators that want to be in cover. A lot of really awkward to use. I had sort of 3 or 4 inches. So we've transitioned. We used to be 50-50, and we're transitioning probably more 75-25 to lips from sort of like 1/2 inch to 1 inch in depth. So you can touch it if you want cover and to be able to shoot through, but you can also stage behind it and not get shot if you're an assault army.
Are you so those ones that you've got like the big, so like the whole the owl would look a bit like a triangle, right, with a base sort of filling in the gap. Although those you've got the windows open on generally, right? So it's like, yeah, you can stand here and have cover, but like
We don't
and
have
maybe
any
not be
closed
difficult
windows.
to charge if you don't have reachable. Yeah.
That's not true. We have one set of closed windows.
One set.
Yeah,
Get told, son.
Literally one set per table, and now if you add in the
True.
container stacks, we've also got another thing. So there are two things on the table that will completely block line of sight from behind it, that you can't get line of sight through, which is also a key point, so that you can't just touch it and come off of it again. So we've adjusted a little bit. One thing you mentioned was like it's a bit of a mix of WTC and that kind. It's not really. Like we've taken the container shapes idea from WTC, but beyond that, it's nothing like it really. Like we don't have the same made up keywords on a few pieces of terrain. Like our craters are craters. Our craters are not these amazing craters that give you dense and light cover as well, and things like that. So whilst there's similarities, but it's similarities because of the core rules, not because of anything that we've done. We as a team don't particularly like WTC terrain. We find that it may work in team events where you can select who's going on what table with what list, but in an environment where you're playing an all-comers list and taking on people that you aren't able to select, it doesn't really work to create a balanced play style for it. So
your some of the differences, right? Like your container is much larger than WTC ones, for example, right?
No.
Yeah.
So our containers now are matched to the size of the WTC containers. So each container is 5 by 2.5 by 2.5. Previously, we did have larger ones. We've completely replaced them, so they've been completely removed from the set now. So,
gotcha. I am going off of outdated terrain that the Auckland guys have.
Yeah, so they've got some of the older sets from last year. So we've subbed out a few pieces because we were finding that those containers were. It wasn't so much the height that was the issue. Like 2 of them stacked on top of each other were of a similar height to 3 of the other ones. It was more the width created a really large footprint that was difficult to work around. So we decided just to go with the standardized size. So
there was also like an issue at a local event where somebody realized that they were like 5.1 inches tall, and so all of a sudden flamers couldn't be charged from on top of them, and that was the death of those containers.
I feel like that's the one where you just roll like these counters this tall.
That's exactly what we've done now. We've said that they're 4.5 inches tall, even if they're 5.1 inches tall or whatever they may be. So
but your smallest owls are similar size footprint, I think, to WTC ones, but then you've got a bunch that are like much larger as well, which are different. And like I think we alluded to before, the not the bottom base plate, but like the upper floors on your ruins are much larger than the WTC floors, which means that you can get some spots where like you can hide infantry or things that can tuck underneath there from like knights, and you won't be able to. You also can't do stuff like get all the way in there with certain tall vehicles. Like I don't know the height exactly, but that sort of thing, right, Adam?
Correct. Yeah. So one instance that's come up a few times is Josh trying to charge me with his Hive Tyrant, which thankfully he's no longer playing Tyranids because apparently they got bad. But trying to charge me with a Hive Tyrant, and I've got like a model sitting under the bottom level of that L, and he just can't get there because the Hive Tyrant's wings and the base just make it impossible to get within engagement range. So it certainly has that. We also have I would call it definitely probably unique in the square. The square is something that I haven't really seen LVO do a much larger rectangular one, but we do the squares in both large and small format, and both based and based format, and that's definitely a unique piece that we have as well. So
so you got big squares with like 3 sides, right? Like a U-shaped ruin, but it's got a solid base, and then you've got U-shaped ruins that have an actual U that you can like sit in and be obscured.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's really like you could fit in the large one. You could pretty well fit a Land Raider on the bottom level without touching any of the sides. So
and the small ones are pretty good size for a single Armiger. As a size reference for people.
Certainly fits in there, and a rhino fits sideways in the small ones. So
yeah. So do you
fantastic.
guys
You go, Garth.
how deliberate were the choices? I'm sorry, Sam, you don't get to talk. I got questions. How deliberate were your choices of having, like, are you happy with the unchargeable situation with your ruins? Because I'm sure that could be like a little bit controversial. And also, given that some of your rulings at the end where you don't want unchargeable stuff on crates, like, is that a conscious decision to keep that around?
So after you sent us the picture, we made an amendment to that particular piece of that particular piece of terrain. A lot of people have commented that they're like, oh, we can't fit knights through this. Josh and I literally had in our hands, when we were doing the terrain, a knight and an armiger to make sure that they all fit through all of these different spaces. So whilst they're not millimeter specific, the concept is that a knight or an armiger can maneuver through just about any space. So whilst a knight can't charge maybe a single 40 millimeter model under that piece of like that large L, if you've got a unit of 5 of anything with more than a 25 millimeter base, there'll be an angle where that knight can get it from either on the outside or from behind. So
right, so it's something you've decided and you're more or less okay with.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad thing for one model to be able to be hidden in there, or even 2 models to be able to be hidden in there and be unavailable. Like GW wrote the rules. Like a lot of people always complain with the windows. They're like, oh, I can't hide my knights. It's like, well, that's not us. That's GW. GW literally doesn't sell a piece of terrain that you can hide a knight behind. And they made the conscious decision to say that these can never be obscured. So that's literally the rules of the game. Like we're literally building terrain to the rules of the game. We're not skewing it by building pieces of terrain that are 9-inch high walls that are 9 inches
or
wide.
that can hide like aircraft.
Yeah,
that one's like silly. It's like, yes, my plane is going to hide behind this wall and then fly through it.
Absolutely, it just shouldn't exist. Like the WTC large Ls, like I'm not a fan at all because of the fact that you can hide a knight. Some smaller aircraft can hide behind them. Like that's not the game. Like people are like, oh well, you shouldn't do that. Well, no, that's what the game that GW wrote. Let's play the game that GW wrote, not make rules up. So
on those large Ls as well, realistically, they're 9 inches tall, so you can have unchargeable units on the top floor. Like it's not any different.
Yeah, you're right.
But then they can be shot, so it's
the same situation. They can be shot.
Yeah, no, it's the exact same situation. Yeah.
Oh, easy.
Alrighty. What are we on to next?
Yeah, so obviously, I'm sure we could spend a whole hour talking about terrain for the rest of the podcast, but I'm sure people want to hear more stuff than just terrain and how you develop it. So let's move on. So obviously with Uprising, it's sort of unique in the sense it's going to be like one of the first major events, if not the biggest event, to run the new Arcs of Omen book, and with all the new balanced data state, all the new points and everything. I'm sure that was a big surprise because last year, obviously, it dropped like the weekend of, or got previewed the weekend of. What was the decision to allowing the new book to come out, and also as well as new guard? Like, what was the decision behind allowing all this?
I'll field the guard, and you can do the Arcs of Omen if you like, Josh. So guard was a really easy one for us. We understand that GW have said that they don't consider it to be active or whatever, however they want to phrase it. But if they want to release a book and get people to buy a book for 3 months and have that money sitting in their account earning interest for 3 months, then those people should be able to play their book. I'm not going to turn around and tell someone who's been waiting for their book, which is quite literally a kindergartner at this point, to drop, that they can't play their codex when they've had it in their hand for 3 months. So same thing goes for the new models. It's not the players' fault that GW are holding back the release of these models. I've even heard that the Dawn could be held back anywhere up to 12 months, which is just a joke. Like, there are so many communities out there that are holding out on this and saying, we're not going to play with models that aren't released. And that's fine and dandy, but what happens when a model isn't released for 12 months? Like, that's going to become a bit of a problem. So we've always considered ourselves a bit of a tip of the spear when it comes to these things. We played with Votan on release weekend as they were, and we continued to trend with guards. So we made the decision that we were just going to answer whatever FAQ questions that came up and as best we could, and we were going to lean to the side of being cautious. So if something was a well, technically I can do this, but I'm not sure if it should. Well, then technically you're not doing it because we're not going to risk you breaking it to do that. Things like Ursula Creed stacking +1 strength to make Lasgun's strength 6. So, yeah, so things like that. We made that decision very early on. Like, that was really never in doubt. We made the decision that we were just going to do it, and that was it. So,
Yeah,
And I guess
people play with their toys, right?
yeah, exactly right. Like, it's a massive feel bad, and you've seen that with LVO. Like, so many people have been online talking about how they want to play their guard at LVO for the first time in 9th edition, and it's a totally legitimate thing. So yeah, I don't see why there's such an issue. So,
and given that stuff's leaked now, right? Like, I think most of even the New Zealand contingent that are any of them that are looking to go, and we're probably some of the furthest traveling, have all got like enough time to get stuff set. So it's come out just in time for you to be like, yeah, cool, go with the chaos. And it's pretty difficult to fault the whole like, yeah, let's be the first big tournament with like all the cool new toys, right? Whereas if you start like not letting stuff in, then people will get upset either way.
I was going to
you,
add
Josh?
things, but my son is beside himself in the background. So
I was like, have I said something wrong, guys?
I'll take it then. So, with the Arcs of Omen stuff, that was a lot harder. We started getting information like probably mid-December that something was coming, and people were asking us when our cutoff was, and we had pre-releases going, oh, you'll like your cutoff. But we had kind of made the comment a couple of times that we wanted to do what we could to include new rules because, one, from a personal perspective, I hated Nephilim. Nephilim was shit. Like, I went to a tournament and I got 94 points in the first round, and I was 16th at like a 40-person tournament. I was like, this is a joke. Like, the fact that I'm 16th with 94 points there's something wrong with this game. So I was very happy that Arcs of Omen was coming. We obviously couldn't make that decision ourselves though, because we had 250 people who had invested significant money in coming. So we needed to make sure that we were involving the community in the decision. So we put up the poll to kind of gauge where the community was at with the feeling. We, in the background, we had said that we kind of wanted a supermajority. So we wanted at least kind of 60% of people to be on board with saying, yes, we want this. As it turned out, legitimate people, not Khabib from.
I heard you got an overwhelming majority against it, dude.
we had like Khabib from Cairo who works for Facebook voting on it. I'm like, what is going on here? Someone clearly really didn't want to play it. But so when we filtered it out and had legitimate, it worked out to be almost 70% of people wanted to play it. And so we felt that was overwhelming enough. And I think we've been vindicated in that decision. Like you said, we've got most of the leaks. Most people have seen it. People have started playing with it already. It's a good thing to be moving forward and not playing old rules. LVO, for all the respect I have for the event, I think they've made a terrible decision to not play the new data slate, not play the new points, not play the new missions. Their event is, I mean, as much as the biggest event in the world can be, largely irrelevant at this point. They're playing a game that doesn't exist now, let alone doesn't exist after that weekend, which is in 3 weeks. So I think we made the right decision, and the timing certainly worked out well for us because it did give us enough time to kind of make that call and have people be relatively happy with it overall. So
it also just, I guess, proves that Australia has a meta that's 3 months ahead of the US, you know? Like, but certainly earlier in the year, like, we've been relatively consistent in being on the tip of the spear with rules. Like, we had the Tyranids Codex leak for like 6 weeks or something before it came out. And so we played like 2 events here locally with the new Tyranids rules, and then traveled for an event interstate and had to like snap the arms back off my warriors because they were playing with like still Crusher Stampede rules. So that felt horrible. So yeah, I think it's good to like move upwards and onwards, except if you're a Tyranids player. It's a terrible decision. I'm sorry. And if you didn't get the memo, somebody asked us what size bases Tyranid warriors have to go on. So we have to say 50 millimeters. So like, if you weren't already sad about taking Tyranids, be really, really sad.
Oh, too good. And also for people who aren't aware as well, in Australia and New Zealand, like the Junior Codex didn't come out till like a month or two after it was officially released in the US or something like that. So I know we were playing at ANZ Team Champs. I think the book had just dropped or was literally about to drop. I can't remember. It was like a month or two afterwards, which was in May. So in Australia, sometimes we get delays, and it's great that we be tip of the spear when stuff comes out, we can actually play it. So, and I'm sure I know people have been having issues with Arcs Omen getting the book. I'm sure there'll be available copies for people to use at the event if there's any issues.
Yeah,
and it's not limited.
I don't know that that's an Australian specific thing with Arcs of Omen. It was very much the same with Nephilim, right? It sold out worldwide pretty much within a week of it dropping. So I had a bit of an interesting discussion with a certain member of the community who's pretty linked in with GW and the events team at GW and around our use of the Guard Codex. Because it was a bit controversial for such a large event and an event that's generating a ticket to the World Championships of Warhammer to be using the Guard Codex when it was a GW instruction not to use it. And they had made the point that, well, you're encouraging people to pirate rules by, if they can't get their hands on the Guard Codex because the box was limited, then how are they going to use legitimate rules? And I turned around and I said, I'm sorry, do GW events not use Nephilim? Because Nephilim has been sold out for the last 6 months, yet you expect people to use Nephilim. So, and they were like, that's different. I'm like, well, it's really not. And that was kind of where the conversation ended. So,
dude, brutal.
Yeah.
It is different in a way because it's kind of worse that like you can't keep up with the thing that's meant to be released.
Yeah, it's bad. Like, I understand the global supply chain issues and all that kind of stuff. I totally get that, but that's not a reason to punish players of your game. Like if you can't provide enough copies or if you can't release things as a whole, then don't release them.
Maybe look to like another system, maybe digital or something like that. I hear that's like pretty good at getting around shipping delays.
Look, I for all the negatives I have to say about the way GW does business, they have embraced the digital age a lot better than they could have, right? Like we now get digital points. We don't have to buy that book at least. So
do they even they show when stuff's different in them as well? Next one, they might color code up or down or like show the previous one. They're getting there.
Yeah. I think that they've come a long way in what they do with that, and I have much respect for that. I would love to see the app be good, but dreams. That's a pie in the sky dream. So,
do they fix things though? Like rattlings are still 50 points in the book, right? Online. Like even though it's digital,
one step at a time.
Yeah,
one step at a time, Josh. One step at a time.
At least they are like as much as it's like low hanging fruit to like make fun of GW's faults. Like at least there's like somewhat consistent effort to improve and like they're acknowledging the competitive scene and all that. Like that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I especially with them on board with the World Championship of Warhammer and things like that. I think that we're going to see over the next, I don't know how long it's going to take Amazon to get their ass in gear, but over the next, let's call it 2 to 6 years, we're going to see a significant boost in player base between GW's heavy involvement, Henry Cavill on board, Amazon on board. Then we've got Space Marine 2.0's game coming out. I've heard murmurs of a reboot of the original Dawn of War. So there's going to be a pretty significant boost in player numbers because we saw a massive influx when Dawn of War came out. And I think that all of these things are going to go together and create a really big push. It was funny, like the couple of days before the Amazon deal got announced, I was discussing with someone what the real expectations for the largest event you could host in Australia for 40K were. And I had said, I don't know that there's much capacity beyond 350. I just don't think it can exist. I don't think there's enough people that are willing to travel and play. And then that dropped and I'm like, okay, I'll reassess that in the next 6 years because that's going to make a big difference. So
yeah, like it's like I know as I've gone through the hobby, right? It's when I was like earlier on in it and trying to explain to people, it's like, do you guys know the Dawn of War video games? Whereas now like those are a bit older and like broadly the rest of the game has become more popular along with like D&D and those sort of games and that just nerd culture becoming more popular. So now it's just like, do you know Warhammer? And quite often people are like, oh yeah, I know that. Or like someone will have had a box of like them when they were a kid or whatever that they got one Christmas or that sort of thing. And now, like with the Amazon show, like it'll be like, hey, have you seen that show that Henry Cavill was in? And that I could see being quite influential.
Yeah, it's great for the community as a whole. So it's just a matter of getting there. Like, it's going to be obviously a couple of years, so we'll see how it goes.
See how it goes. But speaking of things that's not going to take a couple of years, you guys are going to be the very first Warhammer World Championships tickets, right? Is the first event to be handing out a ticket to the Warhammer World Championships, which was announced this past week. So Warhammer, like the company hosting a World Champs in Atlanta, Georgia in November this year, or August, November this year. So, and like a singles event. So you guys are going to be the very first to offer a ticket to the event or invitation for, I guess, the overall winner or best general, or how are you guys going to try and handle it?
So it's going to be the number one ranked player. So the person who wins the event will get the ticket straight over there. So they'll get flights and accommodation courtesy of the OCC, which is the Oceanic Championship circuit. That's the one. There was a couple of different names we bandied around, so I was getting caught up on a different one. So the Oceanic Championship circuit and Uprising are providing the flights and the accommodation and a direct ticket, which is at this point going to be an extreme rarity. There will not be that many events in the world that generate a direct ticket. And then there'll be obviously a few countries around the world, like Australia, probably the UK, Europe, things like that. They'll be doing like similar to like a Masters style thing where you generate an invite from winning a certain event. You go to that, and the winner of that will then get the opportunity to go over. So Australia will be sending over 2 people. So the winner of the Oceanic Championship event, and then the winner of Uprising will be going over. So they'll be going over to compete, and based on how well the WTC team did this year, there's probably a decent chance that they make a bit of a splash. So it'll be good to see.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, happy days. How big do you think that is for, like, I guess, Australia and the game of Warhammer as a whole? What about yourself, Josh? Do you think this is a massive thing? Like, do you think this is like a good incentive? And how excited are you guys about being the first first person to be invited to this event?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sweet. Like, Adam mentioned WTC, and you got someone like, Liam Hackett making a splash over there, losing one game, but winning the singles, and then, winning all his games and winning the event overall. So somebody like that, he won the event last year. If he wins and goes and has a chance on the real stage, I'm sure there's other players who could do just as well. But it's pretty cool to be like providing that opportunity. It was cool being the first on the circuit. It was also like short notice for us to allocate funds for it, but it's it's a pretty hard thing to say. Like, it's too hard. We don't want, it might affect our bottom line. We're like, yeah, we definitely want to send someone to represent our event and our country on the global stage. It's awesome.
Dude,
That's
we
awesome.
just need one of the Kiwis going over to pull the reverse Adam Camilleri. We'll go over, steal the ticket, and then take it back. He can have the Kraken GT. We'll take this one.
That would be great, because you guys aren't going to have your own event that generates tickets. So come over, bring it, do it. Let's get it on. Battle of the Ditch, do it.
Yeah, man.
Happy days. So you said, so as you alluded to, that Towse, so there would be a couple of international people traveling to Uprising, and a bunch of people from all around Australia with up to 250 people playing. So how exciting is this to be your third iteration of Uprising and be your biggest event and have people travel overseas for this? Start with you, Adam.
Yep. So from my perspective, it's amazing. So we've been pushing towards the biggest event that we can host. We're lucky in that most events are restricted by things like how much terrain can they get, how many mats can they have, all that kind of stuff. We have a really good relationship with the mat supplier. We make our own terrain. So the only thing that holds us back is venue size. So being able to push to 250 this year, we've obviously had a few drops since that 250 number. Like, we peaked at 253. We've had a few drops since then. We're sitting at around 240 now. So that's still huge, though. I in the 12 years that I've been playing the game, I do not recall any event cracking the 200 mark, let alone the 240 player mark. So, I'll rephrase that. Any competitive event, because there is an event in Australia that does pull those kind of numbers, but they are very much a different style of event to us. So it's really, really exciting. So we're looking forward to it. It's been stressful. As dumb as this is going to sound, like, this is going to sound really dumb, but we had 126 players last year. And we were like, yeah, let's just push. Let's just get as many as we can through the door. Let's do 250. And then we sold 250 and we were like, okay, time to start building terrain. And then we realized that 250 was literally twice as much as 126. And we were like, holy shit, that is literally doubling the terrain that we've spent 2 years building. And we've got to do it in like 6 months. We were like, this is not going to be pleasant. And it's been stressful. It's been a lot of work. Josh has obviously got a young baby, as you can hear whenever he unmutes himself. Simon also has a young child. Luckily, both of my children are a bit older, so I managed to get around that. My wife is extremely understanding when it comes to this kind of thing. But yeah, it's been full on this year, and good as place as any to announce it. Next year, we'll be able to raise the cap to 340. 342 technically. If we can get there, it'll be great. If not, we'll just continue to build on what we've got. So I'm also not sad if we only sell 250 next year, because that's no terrain to build, so much better. I would like a year off at some point. So
what's your reason for that very specific 342 number, by the way?
Square meterage. So we've sourced a new venue for next year, which is the same venue that we're going to be using this year. Luckily, our relationship that we'd built with them already for moving towards next year allowed us to kind of go, hey, last minute, we need a venue. Can you push a couple of things for us? And they were able to accommodate. But yeah, 340, like we work on square meterage for the tables and the space we want to have around it. 340 is the maximum capacity we can cram into the space that we've got. So, and still be comfortable. That's still 1.5 meters around your tables. 2 tables are butted, not LVO style where you've got a row of 12. So if we did,
I was just going to say, Simon's just commented that like he's glad that COVID's gone. And he's right, COVID's gone. Let's just cram them all in. We'll just do 500 in that space, like we'll just do 12 tables. We'll just go full LVO.
Yeah. If we went full LVO, I reckon we could probably fit about 440 in there. So that would certainly be a thing.
Oh, too good.
So because I'm like a real good tournament attendee, what's with the venue change? Is that just to fit everyone else? Oh, Josh.
I'll let Josh field that question. My phone's about to die, so I'm just going to get a charger.
Who does this?
I will continuously get in the way of Sam.
Basically, we had found a venue that we were like happy with, and then sort of in the last month, they kind of rescinded on some of the promises they'd made, and all of a sudden the event was looking like not an A+ event that we'd sort of aiming for, and we would have been okay. But when we found the venue for next year and saw they're available, it just made complete sense to switch to like it's really unfortunate the timing. Like obviously our event is in January and like everyone's closed over Christmas. So we thought we'd lock this in like 3 weeks ago, and then like no one was contactable for 3 weeks. We couldn't cancel, we couldn't confirm. So that was the real conundrum we had. But like we made the decision because we want to deliver a quality event, and as much as it's an inconvenience and it's a real burden and it's hard on us and it's hard on everybody, I'm sure most people's travel time has been affected. Like we're doing it so we can deliver that top tier event, and that's what we really want to do.
Yeah, fantastic. And you made an announcement on it today in Australia time. And you said there's going to be a shuttle service available. So people who booked for the event with the original venue, there'll be a shuttle service available on the day. There's like times and stuff on the website. So, and then we had someone ask, so Simon Gojkovic, so from Queensland, the Godhammer himself. So he just asked, so what's the shuttle? How does the shuttle bus work? Is it like multiple shuttle buses? How does it work? And is it trips from the old venue? Like, how does it all work?
So people need to reach out to effectively book a seat on it. We've got a 57-seater coach. So when I say shuttle bus, it's a proper like bus. So people need to reach out and book their seat with us. It'll be collected from the old venue and they'll be taken to the new venue. And then there'll be options to return to the old venue at the time specified in the, I can't really remember, my brain's a bit fried from today, but the times are all laid out in the post announcement that we made today regarding the change of venue. And so they'll be taken to the new venue, returned to the old venue, including after trivia on the Saturday night. And yeah, so we do have limited space available. And once we fill that space, if we have to come up with something else, we certainly will work on getting that organised as well. We've got multiple other options on the table. So if anyone does get to the point where we've filled up our 57-seater coach. At this point, probably doesn't look like we're going to fill it up. It looks like a lot of people have organised hire cars, are staying with family and friends. There's even some people who are closer to the new venue than the old venue. So it looks like there's multiple different options. If you've got a better way to get there, I highly recommend it. But worst case scenario, we've got the shuttle service on. And if that fills up, we'll organise something else as well. We're committed to getting you there. It's not on you. It's completely on us. So we'll do what we can to get you there. So.
No, that's fantastic, and that's why it's like an A+ event, as Josh alluded to. So, you talked about before that you want to make it to be a premier event. I know in the past you've alluded to, I think Warzone Atlanta was like a big premier event. There's a full bar available at the event. There's good terrain, good table space, and stuff like that. I guess like a sort of two-part question. So, what is some of the troubles or issues in escalating this event to a 250 player cap? Does the troubles just keep elevating and elevating? And also, like, what are some of the features we can look forward to seeing at this Uprising Adelaide? So obviously you alluded to the trivia night on the Saturday night, and the bar and stuff like that. So what are some other fun things you can look forward to?
One of the key things we really want to deliver, and we did last year, is the QR code service. So you can order at your table and have beers brought out to your table. So, you're playing game of 40K, it's pretty tense. You don't want to step away and trust your opponent's movement phase. You just order the beer, it comes straight to your face. So it's perfect. Obviously, air conditioning is important. It's summer in Australia, it's hot. So fortunately, the forecast is looking mild, but our new venue has some really good air conditioning. We've got quality terrain. I guess the one thing that a lot of events struggle with is when they grow in size, they don't have the terrain, and they go to throw some shade. They go to player place because they don't have enough. So we wanted to deliver on the continued good terrain experience. Like we've set out a layout, with the 6 tables that we think is really easy to deliver on a large scale. And we have painted it to a high quality. Realistically, the stuff painted this year, less of a high quality than previous years because we were under the pump. But it's still, compared to your bog standard terrain setup, it is going to be pretty sneaky.
Yeah, beautiful. That's all you could ask for.
And you got mats for every table as well?
Yeah.
Nice.
So just building on that. So as Josh has said, the QR code ordering at the table makes life so much easier. You don't have to leave in the middle of the game. You just saw your opponent roll snake eyes on their Swarm Lord and blow up in the middle of their army, do 14 mortal wounds. You can just order them a beer at the table. Someone will come over. It's a lot easier. It makes life a lot easier. We've got Josh Diffie, internationally renowned retired 40K judge, coming to do some judging for us. He's also going to help us on the BCP side of things. So something that's really unique to Uprising, as similar, I guess, to what some of the events in the US do, but unique in the fact that we're an 8-rounder. We pod the last day. So on the last day, you will only play the players in your bracket. So, for instance, bracket number 1 will be players 1 through 4. So it'll be essentially a knockout event for those 4 players. They still get to play both games. It's not knockout in that regard. But as far as the tournament goes, your ranking, if you finish day 2 ranked number 4, the worst you can finish in the entire tournament is number 4. Even if you lose both of your games and the person immediately below you wins both of their games, you will not finish any lower than 4th. You are locked in that position for the final day, and you're just playing people in that top bracket. So every bracket gets prized. So we prize all the way down to literally 240 people. 236 would get a prize. So every bracket will have its own individual winner. Where we've got the terrain. It's going to be consistent across all the tables. It's going to be there. Mats on every table. It's air conditioning. It's Australia, like Josh said, in summer. It's going to be warm no matter what you do, but we can alleviate that the best we can. There's a kiosk at the venue, so you'll be able to get chips, waters, soft drinks, whatever you need there. There's the full service bar. We're running the trivia, which last year was a raging success. We've got our partners from Smoky Pastures competitive barbecue team on board again. One of the retired 40K players now does competitive barbecuing, one of the best teams in Australia. He's going to come along, cater the trivia night. So we do still have a few tickets if anyone is interested in that. To be trivia and community dinner. It's $30. You get a big plate of American barbecue style food. And then you'll also get some 40K trivia and some ridiculous jokes. So as Sam can attest, last year was a bit of a laugh. So it's, to be clear, it's not competitive trivia. It's whatever the TO says goes trivia. So one of the questions last year, for instance, was, did Magnus do anything wrong? Objectively, there's no answer to that question, but we all know the real answer to that question.
And you just leave it on that cliffhanger, right?
Oh, dear. I really need to book my ticket for that, get myself organised, among many other things.
Get New Zealanders on board if they aren't on board already. Like, there's some holdout groups that don't necessarily participate in it, but this year last year we only had like 15 people, and it was a bit of a letdown for us to put in a lot of effort to only get a few people, but we had so much fun doing it that we were like, even if it's only going to be a few people, we're probably going to do it again next year. And this year now, I think it worked out to be, we've sold 78 out of, actually, interesting. So we feasibly were capped at 100 because we were doing trivia at a different venue. But now that we're doing trivia at the actual venue, there's no theoretical cap on what we could have. But yeah, we've sold 78 tickets thus far, so it's going well. So.
And I can attest, like, I am not a trivia person. I was like, why are we doing this? Like, this is a hassle, yada, yada, yada. And I had so much fun at the time. So you don't have to be good. You will enjoy it. It is a great time. And then just quickly to touch on the prizes, like Adam mentioned, sort of, 1 in 2 people in the room get a prize on the last day. Is it 1 in 2 or 1 in 4?
1 in 4.
Anyway, okay, 1 in 4 people get a prize. Every second.
Because you're in pods of 4, and the winner of the pod gets, right?
1 in 4 get the prize. Also, we've got some like bounties out on, to try and have a bit of fun with things. And so like Adam and I today were like arguing about, I was like, we've got the WTC team. Let's just put a bounty on each one of them. And he's like, realistically, dude, like whoever wins the event will probably beat 2 or 3 of those people, and then they're already winning a big prize, and then they might win the ITC. They've got a huge prize for the winner of the ITC. So it's like top loading. So what we decided to do is put bounties out on the WTC coaches. So those who can't do, teach. So, they should be easy fodder, really.
Easy. Are you guys doing grudges for the event?
What was that, sorry?
Do you guys have grudges for the event?
No. Managing a 250-person event with grudges would be a nightmare. So just to come in on that with Josh. So overall, the prize support pool with the ticket to the US for the World Championships would be somewhere in the realms of $9,500, almost $10,000. And so those bounties, so we're going to have the bounties on the 4 WTC coaches. We're also going to have a state and international based bounties. So the top ranked ITC player from each state of Australia, New Zealand, and then our old friend from Korea are going to have a bounty placed on them. So that'll be a bit of fun. We're going to have a cowbell this year. We have one of our friends who utilized a cowbell at an event a couple of years ago. And ever since then, I've wanted to really get it all organized to ring the bell when you actually take them down. So we're going to have that set up the front. And when you take them down, you can come up, ring your bell as loud as you can so everyone can see, and then come up and claim your bounty. Liam's shirt, Liam is the 2-time winner and, well, the only winner of Uprising. We've still got his, we've got a custom-made Liam face, what's it called, a Hawaiian shirt. So we've got that floating around. That'll be hanging up on a coat, waiting to someone to claim it if someone can take him down this year. So yeah, we've got a lot of fun things going on, as well as all the usual. Like, we're prizing really deep. We're prizing, obviously, we've got the ITC winner. We've got first overall getting the ticket to the US. We're prizing 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So all the players who finish in that pod. We're also prizing the winner of pod 2. We're doing the prizing in every pod there from there down for the winners for that. We've got a bunch of little stuff floating around. So we're doing our best to make sure that we spread it around, and there'll be a bit of swag for every player as well. It's just a matter of making sure that everyone has a great event, not just the top 5 people. So
sounds great.
Fantastic. And with the bounties as well, like, so are you doing the same as last year where people can pay, like, is it a beer bet or like some sort of money to put a bounty on someone else's head? And so once they lose, they get the person who claims the scalp, they can get the bounty per se. Is that still a thing for this year?
So last year we had the beer bounties like placed by people. It was a bit unruly. It was like as well as our bounties. So these are just our bounties. These will be in the form of a voucher usable at our sponsor, Dragon's Lair St. Mary's. So you'll be able to log on to the website, use your $50 voucher because all the bounties will be $50 to buy whatever you want on their website. Beer bounties, we can set up a board. If people want to write up their own beer bounties, go for it. We had a bit of trouble managing it last year. It was quite difficult. But if people want to go ahead and do that, we can certainly set up a space on one of the boards for a beer bounty. So,
yeah, beautiful. There we go. And it looks like someone from New South Wales is ready to the down 40k crew is going to put a bounty on the lead of the Yabby Hunters. And for people who are unaware, it's like a South Australia crew. They may have had an infamous comedian sort of give a little shout out and talk about that. So maybe we'll transition a bit to about the South Australia scene. And like, so who are the Yabby Hunters? And like, what was your response to, I guess, that famous TikTok comedian giving you a bit of a grief for the event?
It's a cult. They're not a crew, they're a cult. They are. It's actually started by someone in our team who just betrayed us and started a cult, essentially. So Nathan Meach is the name. It was. It
came about at
RatCon
this year. Yeah.
RatCon
road
trip. RatCon. So they put out somebody paid a comedian on Cameo to shout them out, and I laughed all day. And I showed like my wife, I showed like my gym partner, showed like all these random people, and they're just like, I don't really like this is so fucking bad. Sorry, stop there, Paul.
It was very good. And for people who want to hear, I think it was on Adam.
Is that what they had as the cold open for one of Adam Camilleri's podcasts?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, yeah.
So it's very good. And also like a famous thing about the South Australia scene, pairings when. So I guess it happened around like Roll for Damage roughly this year. There was a big meme fest generated about pairings. So like, how did that all start? Like, and pairings when?
It comes really from that tip of the spear thing. Like, we just like to have everything as soon as we can. Like, the moment that lists are up, lists open up, it's like, where are pairings? Why don't we have pairings yet? We want to know who we're playing. So, and then it creates numerous issues for TOs because, you have people drop and you've got to shuffle things and you've already made pairings and whatnot. But the SA community loves a good meme fest. And the Yabby Hunters especially, they're big on the memes. So the Yabbies will be out in force at Uprising. They'll have their black shirts on. Feel free to go up and have a beer. They famously, the lowest ranked Yabby after every round has to do a shoey. So you'll quite often find them out the front doing a shoey. And they do bring a clean shoe. They're not quite Walduck level.
That's just cheating, isn't it? Maybe it's not as bad in New Zealand as like Australia where it's pretty warm, but
I would like to see Walduck go 1-for-1 with the Yabbies for shoeys after every round, just to kind of keep his title as the shoey king of 40k. But yeah, so that they'll be out in force. The SA scene has really been revitalized over the last couple of years with the big events that we've got going on. Like we currently hold the two largest events in Australia, being Uprising and then Terracon as well. Terracon runs in June, basically halfway between Adelaide and Melbourne, in the middle of nowhere. This tiny little town gets all their accommodation booked out for the weekend of the Queen's birthday weekend. Terracon this year was 120 odd players. Only the best players in Australia can win Terracon, and if you win Terracon 2 years in a row, like it's a huge achievement. So that's a really, really good thing for people to keep in mind.
Did you perhaps win this, Adam? Is that what we're alluding to?
Maybe I'm going for my three-peat this year. Maybe
can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny that I'm already stressing myself out over the three-peat. So we have Terracon, and then we've also got Roll for Damage as well, which formerly was the Adelaide GT, and then after the passing of one of our big community members, Andy Damage Penn, got renamed to Roll for Damage. That's another 80-player GT that we've got. probably going to push larger again this year. So we're probably looking at 3 events in the triple digits moving forward. So SA really is the hub of 40K. While New South Wales has a lot of events, we have more larger events. So it's been good, and we've been working really closely with the Down Under 40K lads actually, and a lot of the stuff that they've done and we've done, like we've mirrored each other in the way we've helped build up the communities. So it's really good. There'll be a bunch of us headed over to the Down Under 40K Open. I think there's like 8 from South Australia headed over to the Down Under 40K Open at the beginning of April. So there's going to be quite a good representation over there. So we've got a good crew here. Unfortunately for us, like things like ATC and stuff like that haven't necessarily come together in a way that would reflect the number of players that we have. We aren't always able to get our best 8 on the field. We quite often end up with the 8 that will travel, which is fine, and we go over and we have fun, but sometimes it can lead to a bit of a feels bad in the fact that, you know, we're putting on so many big events and having so many people come to our state to play, and then can't really go over and convert that in numbers when we travel. So was something we're looking towards the future on doing. So getting more team events, and we've even tossed around the idea of running like a big American style ATC event here because we've got all the terrain already. So we might as well run more events. Sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? You can tell how happy I am to do that in my voice. So.
Yeah, I heard you want to laser cut more terrain, Adam. I don't think you've had enough.
My hands aren't permanently brown from burned MDF. That is not a thing. So.
Yeah.
The reason that's not organized is like echoing in the background over here. I don't know if you can hear it.
Yeah. So you mentioned in there like when a list's gonna go live and stuff. So I'm gonna be the voice of the average disorganized tournament attendee. Is there any like things you want to shout out quickly, Adam? Like when lists are gonna go? Do you have a plan for like how to deal with Battlescribe not necessarily being updated for the event, and the Arcs of Omen detachments and such?
So we're giving a little bit of leeway before we make any more major announcements, since we've kind of made a major announcement today. But basically, so the plan is lists are going to be due at lunchtime. Oh, you put me on the spot. I can't remember if it was the 18th or the 19th. But I'll confirm that when I do up a big post for it. So lists will be due at lunchtime on that day. So it'll either be the Wednesday or the Thursday. I'm pretty sure it was the Thursday. And basically, it's going to come down to this. If your list is not in on time, you are not getting battle ready for the event, because I don't have time to be chasing you when we're 36 hours out from the event because of the fact that you've been too lazy to input your list in time. If your list is in, but your faction is not listed, as that is going to be a requirement, you will be -5 points in every round. If your list is in and found to be incorrect, we've obviously all got lots of issues with Arcs of Omen at the moment, then there'll be some leeway made, provided that we don't feel that you've gone out of your way to try and make a list that's illegal to then resubmit after you've seen everybody else's list once lists go live. So there will be allowances made, and there will be reasonable leeway given. However, if your list is not in on time, you're going to cop a big penalty. So you don't want to be messing around and not have that list in on time. Battlescribe output's not required. You can write it up in Word. You can do whatever, as long as you list all the relevant things. Obviously, super relevant with all the changes. Hopefully, Battlescribe will be updated. Normally, Battlescribe's pretty good. So I'd imagine there'll probably be a Battlescribe file ready to drop on Saturday or Sunday already. It's probably already out floating around in the wild. And one other thing that we do kind of want to talk about is something that we've been getting a lot of questions on, obviously with the changes to Marines in particular. With what you see is what you get. We made an addendum to our FAQ today, talking about the fact that with regards to what you see is what you get, we're all tournament players. We've all been there. We've all done it before. Oh, this melter gun in all of these squads is a plasma gun or whatever. Whilst we're all tournament players, we've all done it before, it's technically not WYSIWYG. So if you do it, we as TOs are not going to pull it off the table. If your opponent turns around and says, hey, there's too many things going on here, I don't know what's happening, I want a TO to come over, and says, hey, look, there's a power fist in this squad, there's a melter gun in this squad, there's a plasma gun in this squad, none of them are modeled, then you will have to remove them off of the table. End of story. If you've done the wrong thing and haven't made an effort to make this at least reasonable, then no. The example we gave was someone had reached out to us asking, look, I'm running 30 Sanguinary Guard. In my 30-man Sanguinary Guard squad, I've got 22 swords and 8 axes. I want to run them all as swords. That's perfectly reasonable from an opponent's perspective. Everyone's got a sword. That's not fine. That's fine. But if you then add in, I've also got a 10 Death Company, and I want to run Inferno Pistols on all my Death Company, Inferno Pistols on all my Sanguinary Guard. I've also got a Power Fist in that squad over there. There's a Thunder Hammer on that side. You start to get a little bit outside the realms of what is okay. So you need to sit down and have a discussion with yourself internally if you're going to be doing this not wussy wig stuff. We'll be doing battle ready checks, and we will be looking for anything that's obtusely different as well. So when we come around and do the battle ready check, one of the questions we'll ask is, what's not wussy wig in the army? And if you say, oh, it's just some swords and some axes, you're fine. If you sit there and have to list it off for 5 minutes, you're probably going to have half your army removed, and you should probably reconsider what you're going to do before you come to the event. Stop being a filthy meta chaser. Hey, Sam, is that what you would say?
Absolutely. Definitely.
To keep asking prickly questions here quickly, are you going to have a conversion approval thing as well? Is that something you want people to do?
That's Josh has been enjoying that.
Oh no,
today,
because
so.
It's like, do you want it, or then are you going to get flooded with 250 people with their
I don't mind some conversions. So the correct answer is we've got an email address which is team40k@outlook.com, which is all in the documents. You can find it. So conversions do need to be approved. 1 or 2 things is great. If you're sending me 12 pictures, man, it's really taxing. I don't want to open 12 images and look at everything. But some people need to.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Oh, beautiful. So I guess did you have any final shout outs or words to say before we close things out? Tickets are still available, I assume, for people who want to attend last minute.
Yeah, we actually picked up one today, so that's good. We've got around 10 spots available still, so if anyone is looking for the last minute coming across and playing in the biggest event in the Southern Hemisphere and the first real event to run the Arcs of Omen, get on it. We'll be happy to have you. One other thing I did want to really just shout out was a lot of this goes unsaid, but these events don't happen without the community. As much as we put in all the effort to make sure it happens, it's also the community leaders out in their areas making sure that people are hyped to go to these events. So we've got a significant contingent coming down from Queensland. We've got a big contingent coming across from New South Wales, led by the Down Under 40k boys. In Queensland, it's the normal blokes. They do a really good job of hyping it up. We've got our first year of having people come across from New Zealand. We've got WA people on board for the first year. We've gone from 1 person from the NT to 7 people from the NT this year. Our Tasmanian counterparts have gone from 3 people up to 10 or 11. So,
Yeah, I think there's 12 Tasmanians now.
Yeah, they're up to a decent amount as well. So all of those traveling groups, they are what makes it possible to have this event. So we thank every community leader out there who is working towards making sure that we have a community in Australia that is willing to travel, being that the country is so large and that you can go to an RTT every other week in your local area. It's a big undertaking to go, and we appreciate everyone coming across, and we do what we can and apologize for when things do go a little bit wrong, like they did today with having to change the venue and whatnot. But we will put on a good event, and everything that happens before will be forgotten, and everyone will walk away. And just like when you have a kid, you'll be like, I can do that again. That's for us. And then it'll come around and we'll be like, I can't do this.
Just like when you decide to double to make another 120 something.
I mean, hey, if someone said
I can do that
tomorrow,
again.
If someone said to me tomorrow, Adam, I can get you 500 players for 2024. Can you do it? I'd be like, yes. And then in October, future Adam would be like, why did you do this? You haven't even started cutting terrain. You haven't started painting terrain. What are you doing with your life? And I'd be like, yeah, that's true.
Dude, I'd be
as well as
tempted to try and
maintaining a
help.
family, a full-time job, and everything else. So I appreciate the effort you guys put into it. It's an amazing event. So, and anyone who's on the fence, please join. And looking forward to joining everyone there. Before you sign things off, I guess we've got one last little customer who asked a TO question: are Inquisitors still illegal? So maybe yourself, Josh. Are Inquisitors still illegal?
Yes.
Well,
Yes, they are illegal, not in play. Correct.
Oh, with that, thanks for your time, gents. Really, really appreciate us talking about Uprising Adelaide and a bit of things South Australia. And I'm sure we'll be chatting to you guys again at Uprising and in the future. So thank you again, and we'll guys see you guys at Uprising.